Hello, I'm Ros. I've worked as a therapist for several years. Today I'll talk you through bereavement, grief and loss for those experiencing grief and some helpful tips to those supporting them. Having access to information about your loss so that you know what to expect. I hope to guide you through what to expect on the path of bereavement, and it's best to mention for each person that their own loss and grief will be as individual as a fingerprint. I will also look at how we can try self-compassion as a kindness to ourselves whilst mourning at a place in our lives when nothing may seem to soothe us. The terms surrounding death are captured by the following 3 words as a way of explanation. Bereavement is what happens, grief is what we feel, and mourning is what we do. So many of you will have heard of the 5 phases of grief as captured by Elizabeth Kubler-Ross and how they might be experienced. Not everyone believes that there are phases of grief, but whether you do or you don't, I think it's helpful as a way to understand what we are experiencing. Firstly, you may experience shock at what has happened. Shock that this person in your life who is so significant is no longer, and you may feel numbness and disbelief and feel in some way cocooned because of that. Denial that this has happened, and you may experience separation and pain with that. Anger at how this has happened. Anger at how the world seems to carry on regardless. Doesn't the world seem to know you are bereft? Depression, despair. You may experience difficulties with concentration. You might be angry, irritable, or you may want to rage at the world, feel anxious, restless, or extreme sadness, and be tearful. You may feel that if you cry, the tears may not stop. Bargaining to the ebb and flow of living your way through the difference in your life since the death of your loved one. And finally, the move to acceptance as you adjust in some way to the world as it is now. The world changed for you as a person who has died is no longer in your life. You may experience mood swings. You might feel all right at some stages and then may move to depression and then feel okay and then swing between the two, feeling all right at some stages and feeling depressed again. This is completely natural. Your emotions may be very changeable. No one mentions how exhausted you might feel. No one mentions that your appetite may have diminished. You may not feel like eating a full meal. You might not even feel like snacking. I relay this to not feeling grounded or balanced as you would do if you were not experiencing grief. There is no right or wrong way with how an individual grieves. Finally, when you have gone through those 5 stages of grief, and not necessarily in any particular order, or maybe not experience all of them or just some of them. Not everyone that takes that there are stages of grief, as I mentioned, but it is a way that some can make sense of what has happened. Some will want to work out what is going on for them and want to have a way to understand their loss. It may be helpful to know what is going on whilst your brain and emotions are adjusting to this new reality. When people experience a major bereavement, it affects us in different ways. Intellectually, there's a threat to the structure of the world as we knew it. Psychologically, a threat to our own self-identity. Behaviourally, we will break our habits and create new ones. The life that was compared to the life we have now after the death. Spiritually, we may have a crisis of faith or a crisis for our meaning of life as it has changed immensely. Physically, we might experience a stress-related illness. Emotionally, feeling strong emotions and being out of control from our normal patterns. Practically, new or different arrangements for self or children. Socially, there is a change in role with status, so maybe you are now a widow or widower or become a single parent overnight, or a sibling is no longer in your life and you are now an only child. The list of relations and friends we could lose along the path of life are endless, and I won't try to list them all here. So many different aspects and elements of your life will be different depending on your circumstances and your relationships with others. I never consider that we are fully grieved. I believe that our life grows around that grief. So we begin to be able to reach out at some stage, looking past the life that was and then the life that we have now. We will always remember that person was special to us. We might feel at the time that we will never experience happiness or joy, or will be able to recognize the life that surrounds us now is different. We may feel so empty, so very empty, that we can't even dare to think that we could ever begin to smile and be happy again without feeling guilty that our loved one is not with us anymore to share those special times with us. Eventually, that will happen. It's not a case of time heals all. It will make some difference, though, will not erase the love and memories we have for the person who has died. The mourning will, as I mentioned earlier, come in waves, sometimes feeling okay and other times really not feeling okay. This is a completely normal response to the death and loss of someone significant in your life. A personal experience I share here, I have lost several significant people in my life. And what I have found to be helpful is to be compassionate to myself. Self-compassion or self-kindness helped in some way. Looking after yourself and allowing yourself to grieve in whatever way is helpful to you. Trying to stay with your usual routines, though this may be very difficult. The routines can help with some stability. People may avoid asking how you are, or may not acknowledge what you experience, as they are fearful of saying the wrong thing and risk upsetting you further. They simply may not know what is appropriate to say, and so they don't acknowledge or they don't say anything. I mentioned earlier supporting someone who is grieving. And if you are supporting someone, here are some suggestions or tips that may help you and the bereaved. So know that they may want to talk about the person who has died. One of the most helpful and valuable things you can do is simply listen. Give them time and space to grieve. To be there for the person who is grieving by picking up the phone, making that call sensitively, writing a card, a letter, an email, call by or arrange a visit. Don't avoid or ignore or cross the road. Accept that everyone grieves in their own way. There is no normal way. Accept and acknowledge feelings of the grieving person. Let them know that it's okay to cry in front of you, to get angry, or to break down and to be upset. Don't try to reason with them over how they should or shouldn't feel. The bereaved should feel free to express their feelings without fear of judgment, argument, or criticism. Instead, show comfort and reassurance without minimizing their loss. Tell the bereaved that what they are feeling is okay, and if you've gone through a similar experience, share your experience if you think it would help. However, don't give unsolicited advice or claim to know what the person is feeling or compare your grief to theirs. Remembering that grief is as individual as a fingerprint. Accept that you can't make it better. Your overriding instinct may be to try and make things better for the bereaved or their family. Instead, give your genuine condolences. Then be quiet. Don't use cliches like, I understand how you feel, or you'll get over, or time heals. If you get halfway through saying the wrong thing, just stop. No one will ask you to finish. Encourage the person to talk if they want to. Let the bereaved talk about their loved one, including how they died. People who are grieving may need to tell the story over and over again, sometimes in minute detail. The practice of repeating the story is a way of processing and accepting the death. With the retelling, the pain can lessen for them. Listen to them and tolerate silences. Be willing to sit in silence. If the grieving person does not feel like talking, you can offer comfort and support with your silent presence. An empathetic squeeze of the hand or a reassuring hug if it seems welcomed. Listen to what is being said and what might be unsaid. Some find it easier to walk and talk, as the action of walking side by side can allow a conversation to flow easier, especially if the bereaved is trying to hold tears at bay. There isn't direct eye contact, and that can be soothing. Listening, as I mentioned earlier, in a non-judgmental way can create an environment in which the bereaved person can be themselves and show their feelings rather than having to put up a front. Don't take angry or distressed responses personally. Be aware that grief is very painful. It can be exhausting, and some feel the pain throughout their body. Contact the person at difficult times, special dates, birthdays, Christmases and anniversary. Offering specific help and fulfill what you have offered. Maybe cook a meal, drop off a meal, bake a cake, take the children out for a walk, empty the dishwasher, pick up shopping, mow the grass, make them a cup of tea. Don't wait to be asked. This will depend on your relationship with the bereaved. Listening is the most important thing that you could do, and just kindness and engaging with another's humanity whilst they are in deep grief. Pure, empathetic listening can be hugely beneficial. The person can feel supported and heard. And finally, connect with people who accept you as you are. Take it slowly, take it easily, take good care. Thank you.